All right, everyone, welcome to part 2 of chapter 1. Let's jump back in where we left off and get started with personal property related to real estate. Personal property is defined as movable objects that can be either attached or unattached to real estate. Some examples are furniture, appliances, and fixtures. Understanding the difference between personal property and real property is critical in real estate transactions because it affects the purchase price, financing options, and legal rights of the parties involved. Fixtures are personal property items that are attached to real estate in such a way that they become a permanent part of the property. Some examples are built-in bookcases, light fixtures, and ceiling fans. The general rule is that fixtures become a part of the real estate and they cannot be removed without causing damage. Trade fixtures are personal property items that a tenant uses in the course of their business and are typically removable at the end of the lease. For example, a restaurant may have a commercial-grade oven that's a trade fixture, and it can be removed by the tenant at the end of the lease. Another example is fruit grown for a commercial sale has the right to be harvested by the tenants. If you purchase land from an orange juice company, the company has the right to harvest the fruit or wait until it's ready for harvest before you lay claim to the fruit on the land. When personal property is involved in a real estate transaction, it's critical that the buyer and seller have a written agreement outlining the items which will be included in the sale. This can help avoid disagreements about which items were supposed to be included in the sale. Property inspections can also assist in determining which items are personal property versus fixtures. Personal property items that are included in the sale may be listed by a home inspector. Personal property can also have an impact on real estate financing options. If the buyer obtains financing, the lender may require a separate personal property agreement and appraisal to determine the value of the personal property items included in the sale. Personal property, like real property, can take tangible or intangible and physical or non-physical forms. Intangible personal property in real estate refers to non-physical assets that have significant value in the context of real estate transactions. These assets can't be physically touched, but they can be bought, sold, and traded in the same way that tangible personal property can. Intellectual property rights, goodwill, and licenses and leases are examples of intangible personal property. Intellectual property rights are intangible assets that protect an individual's or business's ideas and creations. In the context of real estate, this can include property-specific trademarks, patents, and copyrights. The intangible value that a property possesses as a result of its reputation, location, or customer base is referred to as goodwill. This can include things like the history of the property, brand recognition, and customer loyalty. Contracts that grant the right to use a property or a portion of a property are known as licenses and leases. While the physical document is personal property, the rights and privileges granted by the document are intangible assets with significant value. Remember, personal property is always transferred via a bill of sale, whereas real property is transferred via a deed. In general, there's rules and tests to determine whether something is real or personal property. The following test is most common, but check your local regulations as well. Question 1. Was the item physically attached to the property? This is perhaps the most important test for determining whether a property is real or personal. For example, a stove is personal property. However, when it's built into a kitchen cabinet, it becomes a fixture and is automatically included when the home is sold. Because fixtures are assumed to be included in the real estate sale, no special itemization is required. However, if a stove is freestanding and simply plugs into a wall socket or is connected by a gas pipe, it's considered personal property and is not automatically included in the sale of a home. Question 2. What was the annexing party's intention? Assume a metal mailbox is hung on a hook near the front door. If the mailbox is easily removed without causing damage to the house and has the seller's name engraved on it, the mailbox is most likely personal property due to the personalized intent. However, if the mailbox is permanently nailed or screwed to the house and would leave a hole or other damage if removed, it's most likely a fixture because it can be assumed that the intention is to be a part of the house rather than a personal accessory. Question 3. Was the item specially adapted to the use of the realty? In other words, what did the seller intend for that piece of equipment? If he or she built a beautiful custom home with drapes that fit a custom-sized and shaped window, the drapes can be considered real property due to their adaptation to the specific features of the building. The intention was for these drapes to match the decor of the house. The best practice is to separate personal property from real property in the contract. This brings us to the subject of personal, land, and government rights. Real estate is an asset with a set of rights attached to it. The term bundle of rights refers to the various rights and privileges that come along with owning real estate. These rights are frequently divided into several categories, including ownership rights, use rights, profit rights, exclusion rights, disposition rights, control rights, and enjoyment rights. Ownership rights include the right to own and possess the property, the right to transfer ownership to another person, and sell, mortgage, or lease the property. For example, as the owner of a property, the individual has a variety of ownership rights, including the right to occupy the property, the right to transfer ownership to another person, and the right to sell or lease the property. The owner also has the ability to change and improve the property, such as adding a new room or installing a swimming pool. Ownership rights give the property owners complete control over their property, allowing them to decide how it will be used and managed. The right to use includes the right to occupy the property, access the property, and make improvements or modifications to the property. For example, assume someone rents an apartment from a landlord. They have the right to use the apartment as the tenant for the duration of the lease agreement. This includes the right to occupy the apartment, use its facilities and amenities, and make necessary repairs or improvements within the lease agreement's limits. The landlord, on the other hand, retains ownership of the property and has the authority to impose rules and restrictions on how it can be used. The tenant's use of the property is limited to the terms of the lease agreement, and they must follow any rules and regulations imposed by the landlord. The right to profit includes the right to receive income from the property, such as rent or lease payments, as well as the right to profit from any business or enterprise conducted on the property. Assume a person buys an investment property, such as an apartment building, with the intention of generating rental income. As the property owner, they have the right to collect rent from tenants and profit from the property's operation. They can also profit from selling the property if the value rises over time. Property owners with the right to profits can generate income and build wealth from their real estate investments. This right, however, is subject to limitations such as property taxes and expenses for property maintenance and management. The right to exclude includes the right to prevent others from using or occupying the property, as well as the right to deny access to it. Assume a homeowner builds a fence around their property to keep people from entering without permission. The homeowner has the right to bar others from entering their property, even if it's only for a short period of time. This also includes the ability to prevent others from entering the property without permission to perform maintenance or repairs. The right to exclude ensures that the property owner has control over who enters and uses their property, which is critical for privacy and security. The right to dispose includes the right to sell, transfer, or convey the property to another person, as well as the right to dispose of the property in any way the owner sees fit. For example, the right of disposition allows property owners to dispose of their property in any way they see fit, such as through sale, lease, or donation. This is an important part of property ownership because it allows owners to convert their property into cash or other assets as needed. The right to make decisions about property, including decisions about its use, development, and management, is included in the right to control the property. For example, assume a homeowner in a neighborhood wants to paint their house a bright pink color. The HOA has the authority to approve or deny the request based on the community's rules and regulations. Similarly, the HOA can decide how shared resources in the community will be used and managed, such as hiring a landscape company to maintain common areas or determining when and how residents can use shared facilities. The right to use and enjoy property for personal purposes, such as living in a house or using a swimming pool, is included in the rights of enjoyment, as is the right to enjoy the property's natural resources such as water or timber. This assumes once again that the activities are legal. You are not free to commit a crime simply because you own it. In your home or yard, you are subject to the same state, local, and federal laws that you would be if you were walking down a public street. There's also rights that you don't have as part of the bundle of rights. There's government restrictions depending on location, and these restrictions are commonly known as zoning regulations and ordinances. Without permission, you don't have the right to destroy or lay waste to your property. For example, building demolition requires a permit. You also can't refuse to sell your property when the government exercises eminent domain power. And government restrictions aren't the only ones. Some property use restrictions can be created privately through deed contracts that explicitly state these restrictions. As long as these private restrictions don't violate local, state, or federal law, they can be enforced by the seller and any other party authorized by the deed to enforce the restrictions. While you have the ability to create private restrictions through a deed, they're typically created and imposed by a private master developer on subdivided platted lands early in the process and are known as covenants, conditions, and restrictions. If you conveyed property to Mr. Smith and stipulated in the deed that the property must be set back at 35 feet from the property boundary lines, Mr. Smith could be sued if he built a house only 10 feet from the property line. As a result, Mr. Smith may be forced to demolish the new house or move it back 25 feet. If the private restrictions are designed to run with the land permanently and not limited to Mr. Smith's use, then all subsequent buyers of the property would be subject to the same building setbacks limitations. An important consideration is, in addition to municipal or local government restrictions, it's critical to identify any restrictions resulting from current or prior deeds. And that concludes part 2 of this chapter. Thanks for watching. Continue on to part 3 when you're ready, and we'll jump into water rights.